All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. Want to introduce myself quickly. Just looking through the attendee report, it's so great to see some familiar names on the list and some new ones as well. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Jennifer Morse. I'm a product evangelist here at MadCap Software. And today we're going to be taking a closer look into MadCap Analyzer and why it soon may become your best friend. So I'm really excited to walk through this with you today. Just a couple housekeeping items. We will be recording the session. So for whatever reason, if you didn't attend live or if you have to cut out, not to worry. We'll send you a link to the recording as soon as it's done. The other thing I wanted to point out is that we have a questions panel in the GoToWebinar console there. So if you have any questions, feel free to jot them down. I do have someone helping me behind the scenes with some questions, so we'll try to get to as many as we can during the session, and then if there's some time at the end, we'll address them. But again, we'll send out a question and answer document to everybody that came. All right, so I just want to make sure we can do a quick technology check. Hopefully you can all see my screen and you can all hear me okay. If there's any audio issues, feel free to drop a little question in that panel there, and hopefully we can make a suggestion. So looks like everybody can hear me. I'm seeing some confirmation, so thank you so much. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So let's kind of jump right in. We don't have too much time together today. So let's talk about some of the core benefits of Analyzer. So MadCap Analyzer is a tool that's tightly integrated with Flare. It opens and scans your Flare project and makes it really easy to not only see really important information about our project, but also let us take quick action when necessary. So when you scan your project with Analyzer, you get a wide variety of information. So it is tightly integrated with all of your Flare projects. One of the other big benefits the Analyzer gives us is that ability to see a real quick bird's eye view, general statistics, and also critical issues. Maybe you've imported a bunch of legacy information into Flare. Maybe you're walking into a project that was started by someone else, or maybe you've had the luxury of having complete control over your project from start to finish. We want to run Analyzer to help us ensure that we're optimizing our content. Is anything broken? Did we use local formatting when maybe using a style was better? Are we reusing information as much as possible? Could we be using a snippet here versus just hard coding some text in? And so we'll be able to see some of these things, and we're going to take a look at some of that. So really, Analyzer is like that extra member of your QA team that you can use at any time, but you don't have to keep this person on your payroll. So it's that person where you can say, hey, go out and find me all the stuff in my project that's problematic and report back to me within a couple minutes so that we know what to do to address it. Okay, so Analyzer can report on a lot of things. It's like this amazing little Swiss Army knife that you keep in your back pocket. In fact, it does so much that I'm not even going to have time to cover everything today. But I wanted to focus on the top analytics it can provide that many authors that I talk to, and also the authors that work here at MadCap, the ones that they love and they cannot live without. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about that summary view, which is that bird's eye view to let us know what's going on and help us prioritize. The next thing we're going to talk about are accessibility reports. So for those of you who care about being 508 compliant in your writing, this can be quite helpful. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We're going to take a look at some style suggestions, including what Analyzer can tell us about new style suggestions, how it can help us replace areas where you've got local formatting with our styles, and also take a look at this notion of undefined styles, what they are and what we can do to address those, because that's really important. The next thing we're going to talk about, we're going to look at snippet and variable suggestions and how it can take segments that appear frequently in our projects and suggest that we convert them to snippet and variable. So that's where that content reuse optimization comes in. So we'll show some examples of that. And then we're going to take a look at cross-reference suggestions. So places in our project where we've used hyperlinks to other topics in our project, and Analyzer will actually suggest we use a cross-reference instead. And it'll let us edit and change those hyperlinks to cross-references for us. So we'll take a look at that. And then we're going to take a look at the unused content report. So this is one where we can really help declutter and help keep us organized, and we're going to take a look at how we can use those to our advantage. And then just a couple of honorable mentions at the very end if we have time. I want to talk quickly about duplicate items in your table of contents, and also topics without any concept links and how we can use that to our advantage as well. All right, so the first thing we want to do when we're getting started is you want to enable scans. And I just talk about this quickly because this question comes up a lot when I talk to folks that are testing Analyzer. Little things like this can kind of help get you started. So the way you want to do that is you can go to the File menu in Analyzer, and you can make some adjustments by just going into that Options section down there on the bottom right. And then when that loads, you're going to get a dialog, and you'll want to navigate to the Analyzer tab. And so you have some options here. So you can turn everything on. However, you may find that if you disable certain things that aren't important to you, Analyzer's performance can be greatly improved. So for example, if accessibility or 508 compliance isn't something that necessarily pertains to you, you can turn those scans off. But in my example, or in my demo, I do want to turn a few things on. I'm going to be collecting segments. I am going to be collecting variable and snippet prospects. I'm definitely going to be collecting some local style prospects, so I can make some adjustments there. And also, since we're talking about accessibility, I'm going to turn some of those on. The last thing I want to make mention in this, which is just sort of an important thing to pay attention to, is that performance options section down there at the bottom that I've got highlighted in that red box. So this is a good way, you know, if you've got a really big project, this can help improve performance. So what this does is it reduces the results displayed on the searches in the reports listed. So I have a really small project in my demo today, so I'm going to turn everything on. But if you've got a really, really big project, maybe it's got, you know, thousands of topics, you may have a ton of issues. Hopefully not, but maybe you do. So limiting the results maybe lets you, you know, maybe you want to handle 100 broken links at a time. Or whatever threshold you decide to set. It lets you handle those 100, and then it'll load the next for you to manage. So again, just something to pay attention to if you've ever used Analyzer in the past, or you're thinking about it, or if you're going to be testing it. If your project's really big, maybe play with some of these things just to help the performance. All right, so that ends the PowerPoint part. So let's go ahead and switch over and dive in here. Let's see if I can elegantly transition. So I've got a Flare project here, and this is the project that we're going to use to scan. Now I can scan this project a couple of different ways. I can launch Analyzer and open this Flare project, but the other thing you can do is if you're in Flare and you want to give it a quick scan, you can be in the little, in this Tools section up here in the ribbon, and you can come up here to the MadCap button and hit MadCap Analyzer. And MadCap Analyzer will then launch and do a quick scan of the project. So that's what I did. I'm going to put Flare away here. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is we mentioned in that list about what we're going to talk about, or the reports that we're going to run, is this Analyzer summary. So this is a place where, as an author, you can see at a glance any mission-critical issues that are going on. Well, why is this important? Well, our project is immediately scanned, and any possible issues will show up in this pane here. So really helpful if you're coming into the project for the first time. Again, maybe you're inheriting it from somebody else. Maybe it was created from an import from a bunch of other content files. And sometimes when that happens, you know, it's particularly on the import side, it's a garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. So this is a really handy way to get a quick bird's eye view of some things that are going on. And then you can see these things right away and take care of it. So the first thing I want to focus on are these critical issues which are in red. That's going to be my priority. I don't want any content getting published with broken links. Some of these things are, you know, here I can see right away I've got some broken links which I'm going to take care of. But then there's some other informative metrics which we're going to drill down to a little bit. All right, so let's first take care of this broken link section, because that's something really important. Again, I don't want anything going out with any kind of broken link. How do links get broken? Well, suppose you move a topic in Flare. Maybe you've seen this before. You know, you drag it from one folder into another, and a little dialog. You know, Flare wants to help you. So a little dialog will pop up and say, hey, do you want to update these links or do you not? For whatever reason, maybe you're going quickly and you forget to hit that button that says update my links. These things happen. Another thing that we see happen is that users sometimes start moving files around in Windows Explorer. Totally fine and legal, and again, Flare has that open architecture where you can access your files on disk, but when you do that, Flare doesn't know that you moved a file from one folder into another, so you can end up with broken links. Another thing that can happen is you may link to a file in Flare, and then for whatever reason that file gets deleted by somebody accidentally. So what we want to do here is use this as an opportunity to resolve any broken links. So this will list all of the broken links in my project. And what I can do here is I can actually select this little open, it's called Open the Fix Links dialog, and it's handy. It'll actually tell you what it does when you hover over it. And then I get this option where I can actually manually go in. And by the way, if I'm not sure what this is, I can double click this and it'll show me what's going on. This is the topic where we've got an issue. So if I wanted to, I can actually use this guy and I can manually search for the file where I need to link. You know, I can browse to the file that's going to resolve the link, or I can let Analyzer suggest it for me. So this is going to tell me, hey, this was the original path, and this is the one I'm going to choose. So just as a quick fix, I'm going to apply that, and he goes away. So now that link is fixed. And the same thing here. I want to go ahead and address this TOC item, and I want it to actually link to the getting started. So for whatever reason, it was linked there, but now that link is broken. So I'm going to click Apply, and I just took care of my broken links. I didn't have to go back into Flare. I didn't have to search and hunt for the files. I didn't have to wait for the build report to show me where the file was and go in and find it. It just let me see it right then and there and address it. So while we're on the subject of links, I also want to make mention of external links. So this is a really handy list of links in your project that aren't pointing to other files internal, but they're pointing to things outside of your project. So you know, I've talked to teams of writers who actually manually keep spreadsheets and keep track of these kinds of links and all of their comings and goings. So again, if you're importing content from other sources or coming into something and you're new to it, there are likely going to be links that you're inheriting. And it's a nice way to have this list automated to check to see, well, what's in there as a link? And hey, are they working, or do we need to address them? So one easy thing you can do is, I mean, obviously you can take a quick glance here and see, but I can select multiple links here at a time, and there's this little check button here. And when I check it, it's going to go through a quick scan, and it's going to say, yep, that one's all right. Oh, I've got an issue here. It couldn't be resolved. So, I mean, I can see that I've got a problematic link, but if I didn't know, I could double click it, and it'll actually take me to the topic where there's an issue, and it's going to highlight, I've got a link here. So it's going to highlight that area in my topic where I've got that issue. I can right-click and I can edit it, and I can make my fix. I know that obviously there's a misspelling here, and I can see right away that I need to fix that. So I'm going to click OK. And when we come back to our report, and if you're checking things periodically, okay, now my link is fine. So again, a really good way to see a list of all of those external links and get a quick spot check to make sure they're in fact working. And if not, address them without having to manually go through every single topic and click your link by hand. All right, so we just talked about links. The next thing I want to talk about, which is kind of interesting, is the ability to see, are we making sure that we're writing content in an accessible fashion? So if 508 compliance is something that's important to you, I highly recommend that you play with this report. So I'm going to come down here. We've got this report called the Accessibility Suggestions. So what this does is this shows us a place where we don't have alt text applied to images, captions not set on tables, basically elements in your Flare project where you haven't optimized that accessibility. So there's a couple things to make note of up here in the local toolbar, because we can actually address things up here. In the search properties, this is where I'm going to take just a step back for a second. This notion of being compliant, 508 compliance, it's a big, long thing. And if anybody's writing for that, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it's kind of this broad topic, but But we want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to make sure your content is accessible because Flare supports it. But there's that element of the author that comes into play as well when we're writing for accessibility. You know, at some point the tool stops and the human being enters in, and we got to make sure we're doing the right things to make sure that what we are writing and putting in there is accessible. So this little search properties option comes up where you can actually choose, well, what's important to you? I'm just going to turn everything on because I want to see everything that's perhaps missing, but it's going to find QR codes without alt text, form elements without labels, tables with missing header elements. So the things that we can find are going to be listed here, and we can choose what we enable and what we don't. I'm just going to turn everything on. So this is really interesting. So I have a bunch of images that are used in my project here that don't have any kind of alt text, so that's problematic. But we can fix them and we can address them right here. We don't have to go into every topic manually, right-click and add that text. We can take care of it here. So again, if you're doing it while you're authoring, that's not a problem. But what if you forgot? Another thing to think about is maybe when you started off on the documentation journey, maybe you didn't have to care about this kind of stuff. And then suddenly you get, you know, maybe, you know, the Department of Defense becomes one of your customers and suddenly it becomes important. So circumstances can change, and this is a great way to catch yourself and fix certain things. So in my example here, I've got this image that I've used that doesn't have any alt text. If I click on it, I can see what it looks like. And here's my table, and I can see I've got a bunch of green checks here without any alt text. So I can, you know, manually go through and do this, but I don't want to do that. I want the tool to take care of it for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this one, and I'm going to come up here and choose Apply Alt Text. And when I do that, I get this dialog, and this lists the file, and I get an option here to set text. Now, if I want to, I can view it. This kind of duplicates what I just showed you, but it'll show me what it is, show me my path and what the name of the file is. But I actually want to set the text to this. And when I click this button, now I can apply whatever alt text I want. So I'll just keep it simple, and I'll say green check. Why not? Now, this is an interesting choice. I can click OK, and it'll only apply that alt text to that one instance of the image where it's referencing in my topic. If I check this little guy here, what this is going to do is apply that alt text to all the links and all the places where that image is used. And that's what I want to do, because that's going to save me a ton of time. I happen to be using this image in a lot of places. So when I click OK, it's going to say, OK, we're going to update all these things. Are we sure? Yes, we're sure. Are we double sure? Absolutely. And now we're going to click Finish. And you'll notice that all of those images went away because now we've applied that alt text to all of those instances. So Analyzer took care of it for me. I didn't have to manually go through and do it. And I can go through and manage these if I want. I did those green check ones at the same time because they were all the same, but you may want to handle certain images differently. Another thing, again, we didn't have some table captions set, so if I double click on this, I can open up my table and I can see I don't have one here. It took me right to the spot where there's the problem. I can right click on my table bar, or my table structure bar here, which is handy, and I can come down and I can apply my caption either above or below the table and take care of it. So again, a handy report to pay attention to. Maybe you didn't care about accessibility, and maybe you do now, and you never had to, you know, worry about alt text and table captions and these things. This is a way to let you take care of these things quickly, or make sure that if you do care about it and you've always been paying attention to it, if you happen to miss something, Analyzer will catch it for us. All right, so let's change gears just a little bit. Let's start talking about style suggestions. I want to draw your attention to the new style suggestions, which is here. So how can this report help us? Well, this is going to tell us where we've got locally formatted content. And by locally formatted content, that means content in my topics where I've manually adjusted the styling. So I've highlighted something, and I've gone up to the local toolbar up here, and I've made it bold and perhaps 24 point and a different color, rather than using my style sheet. So what this report's telling us is it's saying, hey, you've got this locally formatted content, and it doesn't match any existing style in your style sheet. So the nice thing about this is that it'll find it, but then because it doesn't exist, it'll let us make a style in our style sheet. So that's what I'm going to do here. In my example, I've got some locally formatted content. Let's go ahead and open it up. So here I've highlighted this and I've made it purple and a certain size. Well, that's not good. I want it to actually adhere to a style sheet. We always want to encourage folks to use a style sheet because styling your content with your CSS offers a lot more benefits than locally formatted content. So maybe I'm preaching to the choir here in terms of this audience, but you know, locally formatted content is a lot more challenging to control and takes away way more time from the author when you have to alter the look and feel because you have to manually change it everywhere you've used it. When content's styled using a style sheet, you only have to make changes to that property in one place. Everywhere that style's used, it's updated. So styles are a good thing, and we want to make sure we're adhering to them whenever possible. And again, sometimes this happens. You've inherited information, you've walked into something, you're not sure what's going on. Maybe somebody wasn't sure how to use a style sheet or was a little bit afraid of it. They may have just gone in and used some local formatting rather than creating styles. So this is going to let us fix that. So in my example, let's go ahead and create a style. This doesn't exist. And this dialog will come up, and I can actually give this a name. So it's going to keep it within the span, but I'm going to give it a class. So now I can name it something. Maybe we'll call it purple. And I can actually add a comment here. So this is kind of handy. You know, a lot of writers like to use comments with their styles and style classes so you know what a particular style is for. So if you want to add something in here, you can, and that comment will show up in our style sheet. So I'm going to click OK. And what it's doing now is it went into my style sheet for me. It created that style, and it took care of these local formatted pieces that weren't existing anywhere in my style sheet. In fact, if we go back to the style sheet, maybe we can see it. I think I have it open. Do I not? Well, let's pop over to Flare and check it out. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my style sheet, and we can see that it actually wrote that to the style sheet. So if I come down here to my span, this was the class that I just created. So it didn't exist before, and now it did. And it just updated all the places where that style was actually used, and now it's referencing this particular style class in my style sheet. So if I decide I want it to be blue, I can just change the color properties of this to blue, and everywhere it's used, it'll be updated. So that's a huge time saver. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is this report here called Replace Local Style Suggestions. So this is a little bit different than the new style suggestion. With a new style suggestion, again, the properties of the tag don't exist anywhere in our style sheet. So that's why Analyzer is suggesting that we create a new style. On the other hand, maybe you make formatting changes that happen to result in an exact match to all the properties in an existing style. Well, Analyzer is going to suggest that we replace all of that local formatting with a style rather than create a new one. Why duplicate it? So again, it's helpful because it goes back to what I talked about. Styling content with a style sheet is much better than styling it with local formatting and manually applying it. So this is just one other way to help ensure that you're on track and that you're adhering to your CSS. So here what I can do is, let's take a look here. So here it is. It's got this red font and it's a certain size, and it's telling me that it's actually matching something in my style sheet. So we can always take a quick check. But if I want to, I can come in here and I can apply it. And what Analyzer is telling me here is here's the properties, and here's what it's suggesting that we change it to because it's matching this particular style class. So yeah, I want to go ahead and instead of keeping this as local formatting or maybe creating a new style down the road, let's just map it to this h1.red. So when I click OK, Analyzer went ahead and took care of it for us. So now it's gone. So now that's referencing that h1.red. And if we come back here, I forgot what topic I was in. Here we go. So now instead of just locally formatted here, it's referencing h1.red. So that's helpful. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is this concept of undefined styles. So let me pull him up here. So what's an undefined style? So this is a place where we have style classes applied to our content and our topics, but those styles haven't been defined in our style sheet. Well, how does this happen? Well, let's say you've created a new style. You've applied it to a paragraph in that particular topic. Again, for whatever reason, maybe you, somebody else on the team, accidentally removes that style from the style sheet. So now you're left with a style in your topic that's not defined anywhere in our CSS. So this report tells us that, and it allows us to make some quick decisions about it. There's a few choices that we have in this particular dialog. The first thing we can do is Analyzer will say, similar to the new style thing, hey, do you want to go ahead and create a class for this and assign it to your style sheet? So that's one choice that we've got. So again, this is style, it's a style that's been applied and it doesn't exist in our style sheet. And so again, we can add it to our project. Another option we have is, well, maybe you just want to map it to an existing H3 style. So we have the option here. Another thing we can do is we can rename these styles. And this is a really handy thing to do. Again, if you've brought a lot of content over, you may have a bunch of styling in there that's not defined, but maybe a lot of the properties are the same. The renaming aspect is pretty cool because you can select multiple items here and rename it to something, and we can give it a new style name. But just because it has a new style name just doesn't mean it's defined. It's still going to be undefined in our style sheet because we'll have to do something to it. But at least what this does is it normalizes a bunch of things. So then we can do like a mass update to all of them. So maybe I want to call this new style name Jen, whatever it is. All of these will become Jen, and then we can map it to something existing or create a new style for H3 called h3.gen and take care of all of them in one fell swoop. So I'm going to just do one example here. Let's say this guy, I want to create a new style. Well, let's go ahead and rename it. I changed my mind. Maybe we'll call it Jen. Okay, so we renamed these all to h3.gen, but again, it's still undefined. So now what I want to do is I want to create a new style called h3.gen and use that in my style sheet. So I'm going to hit Add New Style, and it's going to populate it with Jen. And then when I click OK, now what we've done is we've created our class and associated that class with the style. So if we come back here, if we do a save, maybe we'll do a rescan just to be sure, since it's doing it automatically. They're gone. So now these styles that were once undefined are now defined as the appropriate class in our CSS. So a great way to handle multiple things at once. All right, so let's switch gears again. Let's take a look at the unused content report. So I'm going to switch gears and come down here. So this is a great thing. You know, when I talk to our own documentation team internally, this is one of their most favorite things to run prior to any kind of published exercise. It's a really quick way to kind of see, you know, is there anything in here that we need to get rid of? Is there any kind of decluttering exercise that we need to go through? This is a really handy report to run. So as projects evolve over time, you often end up with a lot of stuff that you may not need anymore. Perhaps you've got really old images of UI that's changed and aren't even needed. Maybe you've got topics that are so old and they're not in any deliverables anymore. You just end up with files in your Content Explorer, you know, topics, images, snippets, master pages that they're just not used. And this can happen over time. Or maybe you're doing a complete rewrite. You need to make some changes. We can drill into some of these things and take a look at what they are and make some decisions about them. It's a really good opportunity, as I said, to reevaluate all of your content files and just make some quick decisions about them. If you don't need them, delete them, get rid of them, and you can do it right here in Analyzer. You may also find that when you look at these files, again, and these are files that are just sitting there that don't have, perhaps, maybe it's a bunch of images. That image is just sitting in that image folder. It's not inserted to any topic. It's not used anywhere in your project, so it's going to be defined as unused. You may find that there's a lot of stuff you don't need. You may come across an image or a file or a snippet that you should be using, and then you can decide, well, gosh, let me get this into the right spot. So as, again, your content's going to grow, you're going to end up with a lot of files in the content library. It's just a quick way to organize and see what's going on. So this tells us a little bit about the file. I can, sort these things if I want. So these are topic files. We've got some images in here. And if I decide these images, and I can click on it and take a look and see what it is. You know what, if I decide these images, I don't need them anymore, I can select them and delete them. And away they go. So they're gone. I don't need them anymore. This is like a big house cleaning effort. It's a chance for you to declutter and reassess what you've got. It's like looking at the closet full of old shoes that you never wear anymore. Get rid of them, donate them, make way for the new ones. So this is a very easy place to do it. There's another benefit here. If any of you are translating any of your documentation, this is a really helpful thing. It's a great way to avoid sending content out that doesn't require translation. A quick way to declutter everything before you get everything ready. If you don't need it anymore, don't pay for it to get translated. We have a full language services division here at MadCap called Mad Translations, and this is a metric that we always discuss with our clients, existing clients, and even clients that aren't using us yet but are interested. We don't want folks paying for stuff that they don't need. So this is a great metric to help save on some of those translations costs. So if anybody has any questions about that aspect of the business, or if they're thinking about translating, pop your name and email in the question thing, and we'll help you out after the demo. So in addition to all the files that live in your Content Explorer, I can also see things that live in my project organizer. Maybe I've got a bunch of unused variables in my project that I don't need anymore. Well, I can click in here and I can actually delete them. I can get rid of them right here within this user interface. All right, so let's talk about some content optimization as it pertains to content reuse. So let's take a look at snippets and variable suggestions. All right, so let's come down here. Let's first talk about snippet suggestions. So what this report's telling us is it's showing us files where we've hand typed in text that matches snippets that we've got in our project. So hopefully, most of you on the line know what a snippet is, but for those of you that don't, a snippet is a reusable chunk of information that we've got in our Flare project that we can insert into our topics by reference. And they're really handy for bits of information that you use over and over again. A, you don't have to retype them, and B, because they're inserted into your topics by reference, if any bits of that snippet change, you only have to edit that snippet in one place. And everywhere that snippet is used, all of that text will update. So it can save a lot of time. Tons of other benefits to snippets too, as it pertains to translations. So this is looking for content in our topics where we've typed it in and it actually matches. So here we've got this file. This is telling us where the content is. So if we double click it, and it actually highlights the text. So this is saying, hey, you've got this text written here, but you've got a snippet that says the exact same thing. Do you want to convert it to a snippet? So this is really handy. I can actually select them individually and manage them at a time. I can do a multiple select, and Analyzer will actually take all of these snippets and convert it to a snippet block for us. Let's take a look at one more that's a little bit more meaningful. So here I've got some steps and I've written them out, but Analyzer's saying, you've got a snippet that matches this exact thing. Why do you want to have it hand-coded in there? Let's go ahead and convert it. So if I do this all together here and hit apply, what it's going to do is it's going to go and convert all of those blocks of hand-coded text and make it a snippet. So let's go back and see. We've got a little bit of a delay. So now we can see what was once hard-coded text. If we hover over it here, it's now converted it to a snippet. So now I can manage this content from my snippet file in Flare. And if any of these steps change, I only have to change it in my snippet file. I don't have to manually do it every single time. So that's the snippet suggestions. And now let's take a look at the variable suggestions, because that's also really important. And by the way, once we took care of them, they disappear from the list. All right, so let's take a look at variables. So again, variables are somewhat similar, a little similar to snippets. They're essentially placeholders for text. And we see people using snippets for a lot of things. Common things for variables are placeholders for a product name, a version number, a company name, any short string of information that you're typing in where it may change in the future, but you're not sure what it's going to be. Product names, a big one. Instead of typing in the actual name of the product, maybe you're in beta for something and at the 11th hour, hopefully I'm not offending anybody on the marketing team if they're on the line, but maybe they decide to change the name at 11 o'clock that night before you're ready to ship. Well, now you don't have to go in and actually find and replace or manually change everywhere you've hard-coded in the name of that beta product. You can just define the variable to be whatever it is they want, and you're ready to publish. So we love variables. And so this is going to tell us everywhere where we've hard-coded in some text that actually matches a variable in our project, and it'll let us convert them to a variable so we can manage it that way. So in my example here, I've actually hard-coded in FictionSoft 12, but I in fact have this defined as a variable in my Flare project. So let's go ahead and handle it. I don't want to manually change these things. Analyzer can do it all for me. So I'm going to take all these instances where I've actually typed in the actual variable definition and turn it into a placeholder. So I'll click Apply, and it took care of it for us. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of those topics. See if I can remember where it is. So instead of hard-coded in now, you can see if I hover over this, it may be kind of hard to see through GoToMeeting, but that FictionSoft 12 is gray, which is indicating that it's a variable, and if I hover over it here, it'll tell us that. So now I can manage this within my variables, within my Flare project. If we decide it's going to be FictionSoft 13, well, I can just define my variable to be FictionSoft 13, and anywhere that variable is used, it'll update for me automatically. So a really handy feature. The next thing I want to talk about quickly, I just want to make quick mention of this, is the frequent segments. I don't have a good example of this, unfortunately, but frequent segments are similar to the variable and the snippet suggestions. But remember, those variable and snippet suggestions, that text actually matches something that's already in our project. This frequent segments report, it's a good thing to keep an eye on because this is going to show you where you've got segments that occur frequently in your project. And they occur over and over again. And this is where Analyzer will actually suggest, well, you know what, you've got this segment kind of everywhere. It's not matching an existing snippet or a variable, but do you want to make it one? And so if I had something here that I wanted to make a snippet, I could come up here to the Create button, and Analyzer will actually create that text as either a variable or a snippet for me. So it takes something that wasn't there and makes it a variable or a snippet for us. So a really handy thing to keep an eye on. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about are the cross-reference suggestions. Well, what are these? So the cross-reference suggestion, this is actually where we can see everywhere where we've got hyperlinks within our project, and Analyzer is going to say, hey, do you want to make them a cross-reference instead? Why do we like cross-references? Well, they're sort of like hyperlinks on steroids. So you know, imagine you've got a link to something. Maybe you've got something in your topic that says, for more information, see getting started. And we want that to act like a regular hyperlink. So when we're looking at that information online, when that topic gets published out, we want it to be, you know, for more information, see getting started. And that's going to jump us to some other topic in our project. But maybe we're still in a print world where that topic also needs to be sent to the printer and bound and sent off to you know, everybody that's going to be taking the training class. So a blue underlined term when you're holding a page in your hand isn't going to do anybody any good. And as an author, we don't want to have to manage those things. So cross-references take care of that. They're very, very powerful links. So in Flare, we always encourage writers to use cross-references when they're linking to other files or topics in our project. So when we view that information in an online format, it behaves like a regular hyperlink. For more information, click Getting Started. And when we click it, it's going to jump us to Getting Started. But when we're looking at that on a page and we're holding it in our hands, or even online on a PDF that's going to be printed out, it can say, for more information, see Getting Started on page 10. So the link automatically self-heals and refers to itself as a proper page cross-reference rather than a hyperlink that one would have to click on. So we love cross-references when we're dealing with links internal to our project. So this is telling us where we've got links internal to our project, but we're actually using a hyperlink instead of cross-references. So again, in your own world, you know, you may have a ton of links here. Again, you've walked into something, maybe the writer before you didn't know about the power of cross-references, so they just automatically used hyperlinks. this is a nice thing to use. So I can select as many items as I want, or individually, and I can manage them and make them cross-references. In my example, I'm just going to multi-select here, and I've got this option to convert all of these instances of hyperlinks to cross-references. So when I click it, we've got this dialog that comes up, and this actually, I'm not going to get too much into the styling of cross-references here. We could probably do a whole nother webinar on that. But this gives us access to how we want to handle those cross-references. What do we want it to say? And we can edit the class of that or create a new cross-reference class. I'm just going to keep the defaults, keep everything as it is. I just want to make it a cross-reference instead of a link. So I'm going to click OK. And it's going to tell me that I've updated everything. And now they're gone. If I go back to them, let's see if I can remember where I put them here. That would be helpful. Let me go back into Flare and see if I can find them. And I'm going to update my cross-reference. So what happened here is before, and maybe I should have shown this before, but these are the two places where Analyzer updated my links. Before, it just said, for more information on getting started, visit Getting Started. And when you hovered over it, it would just be a regular hyperlink, an A link there. But what we did is we actually converted it to a MadCap cross-reference. And we didn't have to do it manually. We just let Analyzer take care of it for us. There was no deleting the link, reinserting it, and making it a cross-reference. Analyzer took care of it in one fell swoop. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about, and that's kind of, those are like the biggies. The other thing I want to kind of take mention of here, I think some honorable mentions, duplicate items in our table of contents. This is a place where we've got multiple TOC entries that are the same. Again, this is another opportunity to declutter our project. It's a little bit confusing to users if you come across duplicate items in a table of contents. This just gives us an opportunity to address anything that maybe shouldn't be there. So a good chance to reassess and reevaluate what we got in some of our files. And this report tells us that. In fact, if we click on it, we can take a look. So, and this just opens it up in our grid file, and we can see a little bit more about what's going on. All right, the other thing I want to mention are topics without concepts. So this is a place where you've got files in your project, and some people like concept keywords, other people don't. They do have some benefits. This is just a place where, if you want to use concept links in your project, maybe you've forgotten to insert them in there, or maybe you've forgotten to be consistent. This is a great report to help you keep on track and make sure you are being consistent. So these are just files where you haven't, in fact, yet inserted a concept keyword. So what we can do is we can actually apply, if I don't have any concepts in my project, but if we wanted to stay consistent, we can add these topics to the various concepts. And this gives us a few benefits. It gives the reader some additional links if they come to this file, contact information, for example. The concept keywords will let them link to other topics that are related to that particular topic. The other benefit to using concept links is for search filters. So if any of you are making use of search filters in your HTML5 output, and search filters are these guys up here. If I pull this up, let me just come over here and show you an example since we use it. Let me bring this over. Hopefully you all can see this. So search filters are these things. It's just a way to help the user hone in on something. So if I want to search on topic, I may get a lot of results, but I can click on the search filter here and maybe just filter down and search within a particular area. So it just helps hone in and improve search capabilities a little bit. So maybe if you're not using concept links now, maybe something to kind of read through in the documentation and see if it's something that you want to adopt. All right, so that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover today. I'm going to just pop on over to the PowerPoint one more time and just kind of make mention of something. Just so for all of you that attended today, since you are an attendee, you actually do, you're eligible to receive $100 off your next advanced training course. We have 2 coming up. next week. So talk to your sales rep if you're interested in the CSS class or the single sourcing class. Great way to take your CSS skills to the next level. Single sourcing class is a great one if you want to take a deeper dive and learn a bit more about some single sourcing techniques. So I encourage you to pop up to our training page and look at those outlines and see if it's something that interests you. And call your sales rep if you want to get enrolled in next week's web class because you get $100 off. And I just want to thank everybody for coming. If you have any questions that we didn't get a chance to ask, or if you think of something after the webinar, feel free to drop me a line and I'll do my best to get back to you quickly. Let me just, since we have a few minutes, I'm going to just take a look here at some of these questions and see what I can answer. I thought I saw something on licensing and I wanted to make sure I addressed that. Bear with me as I read through some of these here because some of them have been answered. Well, my helper's doing a great job behind the scenes here. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Since we're coming up upon the end of the hour, we're going to go ahead and take a little bit of time because there's some really great questions. I see a lot of feature suggestions in here, which is great. We're going to compile all these and get them out to everybody that attended. Again, if there's something really pressing and you need help immediately, drop me a note. My email's up there, and we're happy to help you directly. So again, I really appreciate everybody taking the time this morning and spending it with me today. I hope this has been helpful. Would love any suggestions or comments after the fact, any ideas for future webinars that you'd like to see. Please let us know. We are all ears. We'd love to get them scheduled. So thanks again, everybody, for coming. Hope you have a good rest of the week as we approach the weekend, and hope it's restful and enjoyable. So thanks again, and we'll all talk soon. Take care.